Welcome to Life Stories. 4 years. I lived a double life, by day. The obedient daughter working for my family's business, by night. The CEO of a revolutionary tech startup no one knew existed. My father dismissed my ideas. My sister undermined me. And I was trapped between duty and ambition. But the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. When my secret empire reached the brink of success, I had to make a choice: stay in the shadows or claim my rightful place. This is my story. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's journey. The blue glow of my laptop screen illuminated my face as I sat cross-legged on the floor of my Los Angeles apartment. The city outside was silent at this hour, a sharp contrast to the chaos inside my mind. Scattered sticky notes littered the hardwood around me, each bearing hastily scribbled equations, financial forecasts, and software updates. A row of empty coffee cups lined the windowsill, evidence of another sleepless night. Another successful code deployment. Another step closer to the empire I had built in secret. I stretched my aching back, letting out a deep sigh. My phone buzzed beside me. Without looking, I knew who it was. Dad. I hesitated before picking it up. Natalie. Where are those quarterly projections? His voice carried that sharp, impatient edge, the one that always left me feeling like a schoolgirl who had forgotten her homework. The board meeting is in 4 hours. I closed my eyes, suppressing the instinct to tell him I had just spent the last 8 hours debugging software that would revolutionize the very supply chains his company depended on. But I couldn't. Not yet. Just finishing them now. I lied, minimizing my startup's dashboard and pulling up the spreadsheets for Carter Manufacturing. You'll have them in 20 minutes. Make it 10. And don't forget the strategy meeting at 9. The line went dead. I dropped my phone onto the floor, exhaling sharply. Typical Richard Carter. No small talk. No pleasantries. Just business. Always business. Even with his own daughter. For a moment, exhaustion nearly overtook me. My limbs were heavy, my mind sluggish. But then another buzz, my other phone. The one my family didn't know about. Jake, you can't keep burning the candle at both ends. National something's gotta give. I smiled. Despite my exhaustion, Jake had been my best friend since childhood. The only person who truly understood why I had built this secret life. He had always seen the parts of me my family refused to acknowledge: the dreamer, the creator, the relentless problem solver. I tapped out a quick reply. Me, watch me. As I sent the message, the first hints of sunlight crept through the blinds. I knew I should get some sleep, just a couple of hours. At least, but before I could crawl into bed, my phone rang again. This time, it was Mom. I groaned, debating whether to ignore it. But I knew better. I swiped to answer, barely opening my eyes. Darling, you look terrible. My mother's perfectly made-up face filled the screen. Even at this hour, she was effortlessly put together. Her blonde hair styled to perfection. Her designer robe framing her concerned expression. Have you been staying up late again? I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Just working on the projections. She sighed. At least you're being responsible this time. Unlike last month when you missed that crucial supplier meeting. Poor Lauren had to handle it alone. I bit my tongue, resisting the retort that threatened to slip out. Lauren. The golden child. The one who never questioned the path our parents laid out for us. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I said, already pulling myself up and heading to the shower. By the time I arrived at Carter Manufacturing's headquarters, the sun had fully risen, casting long shadows over the sleek glass exterior of the building. But to me, it had never felt like a place of innovation. It felt like a prison. I had another office, my real office. A modern co-working space downtown, where a team of brilliant developers worked on software that had the potential to reshape global supply chains. But here, I was just Richard Carter's daughter. The one who would eventually inherit the family business if I played my cards right. I squared my shoulders as I entered the conference room. "There's my little sister," Lauren called out, her voice laced with forced cheer. "Finally decided to grace us with your presence." I forced a smile and took my seat beside Ethan Monroe, our business consultant. He glanced at me knowingly. Sometimes I wondered if he suspected the truth. "Now that we're all here," my father began, his gaze sweeping over the room, "let's discuss the upcoming quarter. Natalie, your projections." I connected my laptop to the screen, displaying the numbers I had carefully prepared in those last few minutes before dawn. Graphs. Forecasts, crafted to show modest improvement while concealing just how much I had been unofficially helping behind the scenes with my tech expertise. Lauren frowned, leaning forward. "These numbers seem optimistic. What's your basis for this growth projection?" Before I could respond, my other phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it, but my heart raced. Harper, my biggest investor. She never called unless it was urgent. I swallowed hard and kept my voice steady. "The Asian market is showing promising signs. If we implement the new inventory management system I proposed." "More technology," Dad cut in, shaking his head. "Natalie, we've discussed this. Our business was built on relationships, not computers." I gripped my pen tighter, resisting the urge to tell him exactly how much money he had unknowingly made thanks to my technology. The meeting dragged on, and my other phone kept buzzing. Finally, when I couldn't take it anymore, I excused myself to the bathroom and called Harper back. "Natalie, where have you been?" Her voice was sharp. "The Series B investors are ready to move. They want to meet tomorrow." My breath caught. This was it. The opportunity we had been working toward. "Harper." I hesitated, checking under the stalls to make sure no one was listening. "I can't just drop everything. My family." "Listen to me." Her voice softened, but it held an urgency I couldn't ignore. "You've built something extraordinary. Are you really going to let your family's outdated expectations hold you back? It's time to choose." As I ended the call, my mother's voice echoed down the hallway. "Natalie, the meeting's waiting." I stared at my reflection in the mirror, straightening my blazer. One life built on lies and family obligation. Another built on innovation and freedom. Something had to give. My phone buzzed one more time. "Jake, remember who you really are." I took a deep breath and headed back to the conference room. Soon, they would all know exactly who I really was. As I walked back into the conference room, my heart pounded, but my face remained unreadable. Years of playing this game, balancing duty with deception, had taught me how to keep my emotions locked behind an impenetrable wall. Dad was speaking when I sat down, his tone sharp, his words measured. "We need a solid strategy for the next quarter. No more ambitious ideas that rely too heavily on digital trends." I clenched my jaw. He meant me. He always meant me. Lauren nodded, backing him up like she always did. "We should focus on strengthening our supplier relationships. Face-to-face meetings. Personal trust. Not software." I swallowed down my frustration. The irony was unbearable. My software, the very thing they dismissed, had already been quietly fixing supply chain issues for months. I had designed predictive models that prevented warehouse shortages before they even happened, optimized shipping routes, and automated logistics in ways that saved them millions. They just didn't know it. But soon they would. I forced a smile. "I agree that relationships are important. But the world is changing. We need to change with it." Dad waved a dismissive hand. "That's enough for now. We'll revisit this next quarter. Let's move on." I barely registered the rest of the meeting. I was too busy thinking about the message I had just received from Harper. "Investors won't wait forever. This is happening. Are you in or out?" I had known this moment would come, but that didn't make it easier. The thought of walking away from my family, from everything I'd been conditioned to believe was my duty, felt impossible. But staying meant suffocating. As the meeting wrapped up, Ethan Monroe, the business consultant, lingered behind. When I gathered my laptop, I felt his eyes on me. Those were bold projections. Natalie. His voice was low, thoughtful. I met his gaze carefully. They're accurate. He studied me for a beat longer before nodding. I don't doubt it. I hesitated. You don't. Something flickered across his expression, something knowing. You and I both see things that others don't. I swallowed hard. Did he suspect something? Before I could respond, Dad's voice cut through the tension. Natalie, I need you at the supplier meeting this afternoon. Can't Lauren handle it? I asked, trying not to sound desperate. I needed to get out of here. I needed to meet with Harper. Dad's eyes hardened. This is your responsibility. If you want to prove yourself, show up. I opened my mouth to protest, but my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down discreetly. Harper, investors are asking questions. If you're not serious, they'll move on. Panic coiled in my stomach. Dad sighed. Don't look so reluctant. Natalie, this is your family's legacy. Family. Legacy. Responsibility. The words weighed heavier than they should have. I forced a smile. Of course. I'll be there. As I walked out of the room, my mind was already racing, calculating every possible move. I had less than 24 hours to decide which life I wanted to live. By the time I arrived at the supplier meeting, my nerves were fraying. Every step felt like a battle between duty and ambition. I adjusted my blazer, plastering on the polished expression my father expected of me. The boardroom was filled with familiar faces, longtime suppliers, logistics managers, and, of course, my father and Lauren, seated at the head of the table. Lauren barely spared me a glance as I slipped into my seat. Nice of you to finally take this seriously, she murmured. I ignored her. The supplier rep cleared his throat. We've run the numbers. With rising material costs and inflation, we're looking at a 30% increase across the board. The room fell silent. Dad's face darkened. 30%. That'll crush us. It's the reality of the market, the rep said, shifting in his seat. I gripped my pen tighter. I had already predicted this. My software had flagged these exact price hikes weeks ago, suggesting cost-saving measures that could have reduced our vulnerability. If only they had listened. I glanced at Dad, knowing what he would say. We need to negotiate, he said sharply. This company was built on relationships, not numbers on a spreadsheet. Lauren nodded in agreement. Maybe if we offer an exclusive contract. I had had enough. If I may, I cut in, opening my laptop. I've been working on something that could help. Lauren rolled her eyes. Here we go. Ignoring her, I pulled up a demo of my software, carefully rebranded with Carter Manufacturing's colors so no one would suspect its true origins. This system optimizes our supply chain, predicting fluctuations in cost before they become critical issues. With these adjustments, we could cut expenses by 40%, negating the price hike entirely. The supplier rep leaned forward, intrigued. That's impressive. Lauren, however, was not impressed. And how exactly do you propose implementing this? A complete overhaul of our operations? Not necessarily, I said smoothly. We can integrate it gradually. Dad cut me off. We'll discuss this later. Right now, we need immediate solutions. The dismissal stung, but I kept my face blank. Then, my other phone buzzed. I discreetly glanced at the screen. Harper, investors want a decision. This is your last chance. Natalie. My heart raced. I needed to get out of here. Excuse me, I said, standing abruptly. Emergency call. Dad frowned. Sit down. Whatever it is can wait. I hesitated, torn between duty and everything I had built. It couldn't wait. I'm sorry, but it really can't, I said, gathering my things. I've left my notes on your desk. I'm sure Lauren can handle the rest. Lauren scoffed. See what I mean about commitment? I ignored her and walked out. Phone clutched tightly in my hand. As soon as I found an empty conference room, I dialed Harper. Natalie, she answered immediately. Where have you been? Tell me the details, I said, pushing the guilt from my voice. The Series B investors are ready to move. But they won't wait forever. If you want in, you have to walk away from Carter Manufacturing and commit fully. No more juggling. I pressed a hand against my forehead. She was right. I couldn't keep living a double life. I had to choose. And I already knew the answer. I stood frozen in the empty conference room. Harper's words echoing in my mind. No more juggling. No more half measures. I had spent 3 years building my startup from nothing. Working through sleepless nights. Pouring every ounce of my energy into a vision no one in my family believed in. And now, standing at the edge of everything I had fought for, I realized something undeniable. I had already made my choice long ago. Taking a deep breath, I spoke into the phone. Set up the meeting. I'll be there. There was a pause. Then Harper exhaled. Relief evident in her voice. You won't regret this. I hoped she was right. As I ended the call, my other phone buzzed again. Dad. I sighed, debating whether to answer. But I knew that if I didn't, he would only get more suspicious. I picked up. Natalie. His voice was calm. Too calm. Come to my office. Now. I stilled. He knew something. The walk to his office felt like a march toward execution. Every step carried the weight of the inevitable confrontation. When I pushed open the door, Dad was sitting behind his desk. Fingers steepled. Expression unreadable. Lauren was there too. Arms crossed. Smug satisfaction radiating off her in waves. Mom sat beside her. A concerned furrow in her brow. And across the room, leaning casually against the wall, was Ethan Monroe. A knot tightened in my stomach. Dad gestured to the chair in front of him. Sit. I did. Carefully keeping my expression neutral. What's this about? Dad studied me for a long moment before sliding a document across the desk. I'm appointing you as Director of Operations, he said. Effective immediately. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This was what I had wanted. Recognition. Authority. A chance to prove myself. But not like this. Not when I had just chosen to walk away. My voice caught. I need some time to think about it. Dad's expression darkened. This isn't a negotiation. Natalie. This is your responsibility. That word again. Responsibility. Like a chain around my neck. Keeping me tethered to a legacy that wasn't mine. I shook my head slowly. I appreciate the offer, Dad. But I have other plans. Silence. Mom's lips parted slightly, as if she hadn't truly believed this moment would come. Lauren scoffed. Here we go again. Teenage rebellion. Part 2. I turned to her. Anger finally bubbling to the surface. I'm not a teenager anymore, Lauren. I'm a CEO. She rolled her eyes. Of what? Some little tech hobby? Ethan cleared his throat. And when I looked at him, I realized something. He knew. He had figured it out. The supply chain optimizations. The seamless integrations. He had seen my software in action. And I could tell, in that moment, that he believed in it more than my own family ever had. Dad leaned forward. His voice low. Think very carefully about your next move. Natalie. My phone buzzed again. Harper, investors are asking questions. Should I tell them you're not coming? I looked at my father. At my mother's worried gaze. At Lauren's barely concealed hostility. Then I thought about my company. My team. The investors waiting to take us global. I stood up. I've already made my decision. Dad's expression barely flickered. But I saw the tightness in his jaw. Mom exhaled sharply. Natalie. But I was already turning for the door. I'll see you at the board meeting. I called over my shoulder. And trust me, you won't want to miss what I have to say. The morning of the board meeting. I arrived an hour early, my pulse steady but my mind racing. This was it. 3 years of secrecy, of sleepless nights, of playing the obedient daughter while building something far bigger than my father's expectations. It all came down to today. I connected my laptop to the conference room projector, my hands moving on autopilot. The slides were ready. 2 versions sat in front of me, the safe one, the one my family expected, and the truth. I wasn't sure which one I would choose. Need help with that? I turned to see Jake, hands in his pockets, watching me with his usual easy smirk. What are you doing here? I whispered. He shrugged. Harper sent me. The investors are in the building. They wanted front row seats to the show. I nearly dropped my laptop. They're supposed to be at our office. They wanted to see the whole thing, he grinned. Can't blame them. It's not every day you witness a corporate coup. I rolled my eyes. It's not a coup. Jake raised an eyebrow. Isn't it? Before I could respond, the doors swung open. Lauren strode in first. Eyes sharp. Suspicious. Secret meetings before the big presentation, she asked. Arms crossed. Before I could answer, Ethan walked in, carrying a stack of documents. My stomach tightened. Dad wouldn't have called him here unless something had changed. Natalie, Ethan said, his voice neutral. Your parents are looking for you. I nodded, smoothing my blazer. I'm ready. The conference room filled quickly. Board members, executives, our legal team, a representative from Wellington Industries, one of our largest clients, and, in the back, Harper and the investors, blending into the sea of business suits. Dad stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding. As always. Before the meeting began, he turned to me. I want to announce some changes, he said, his voice steady. Natalie will be taking on a larger role in the company moving forward. Polite applause. Lauren's face curdled. And now, Dad continued, motioning to me, she will present her vision for modernizing our operations. I swallowed hard. 2 presentations. The safe one. And the truth. I clicked. Gasps filled the room. On the screen, the financial reality of Carter Manufacturing appeared, the losses, the outdated supply chains, the contracts on the verge of collapse, and beside them, the revenue secretly generated by my software over the past year. What is this? Dad's voice was sharp, his face unreadable. I met his gaze. This, I said, clicking again, revealing my company's logo, is how your daughter's little tech hobby has been keeping your company alive. The room erupted. Lauren jumped to her feet. Mom's hand went to her chest. Board members whispered furiously. Jake leaned against the wall, smirking. You see, I continued, speaking over the chaos. While you were clinging to handshakes and tradition, I built something that's about to revolutionize the entire industry. Harper stood up in the back, her voice calm, yet powerful. Harper James, she introduced herself. Lead investor in Natalie's company, currently valued at. She named the number. A number that made Mr. Patterson, one of our oldest board members, drop his coffee cup. Lauren was seething. You've been working for us. No, I corrected. I've been saving you. I turned to Dad. Now it's time to decide. Does Carter Manufacturing want to move into the future? Or will you let your pride destroy everything you built? Silence. All eyes turned to my father. The room was silent as my father stared at the numbers on the screen. The weight of reality settled over him. 4 years. He had dismissed my ideas, ignored my innovations, and refused to see me as anything other than his daughter. But now, he had no choice. Finally, he exhaled. Tell me more, he said. His voice rough but steady. Tell me everything. A slow smile spread across my face. I thought you'd never ask. As I stepped forward to explain, I glanced at Lauren, her expression unreadable, and at Mom, who looked both stunned and proud. Harper caught my eye and gave a slight nod. Jake grinned. This wasn't just a victory, it was a new beginning. I wasn't just Natalie Carter, the CEO. I was the future of this company. And this time, they all knew it. Subscribe to Life Stories for more incredible true stories.